I didn't realize. How did I not think of that? There are so many empty factories because it's that simple. You just go back to the empty factory and you're like, okay, empty factory no more. What are you saying? These are dilapidated buildings these are dilapidated buildings collecting dust. You can't just restart industry like that. Oh, that's awesome. Breaking. South Korea's acting president, because, you know, some stuff happened in South Korea, which, by the way, another incredible moment for America and its care and consideration for international democracy. Bastion of liberal democracy, United States of America, under the leadership of not Donald Trump, but Joseph Robinette Biden, seemingly had nothing to say about South Korea. Our media barely covered the things that happened in South Korea. Does that kind of strike you as odd? Isn't that weird? If you know anything about what happened in South Korea, part of that is because I covered it, right? It's not like there was a lot of news about what was going on with South Korea. The Biden administration barely made a fucking peep about what was going on with South Korea. Doesn't that shock you at all that the incredibly right-wing South Korean leadership tried to do a coup and it failed? And yet, at no point in that process, the American government came out and was like, what the f are you guys doing? No, they briefly covered it. They did. It was all over the media, to be honest, is not correct. They covered it, but nowhere to the same degree that they would if it was like, if a similar attempt was happening in a foreign adversary. Like, think about how major of an issue that was. The real reason is because the South Korean leadership was aligned with American interests, no matter how far right they are. The more right-wing they are, the more aligned they are with American interests. That's precisely the reason why the American government did not make a big fuss about a patently undemocratic thing happening in South Korea. Biden talked about the Venezuelan election. Anytime there's any kind of instability happening in Cuba, we cover it relentlessly. American media covers it relentlessly. But it's crazy to me that the previous president, not the acting president, but the previous president tried to do a fucking coup and a martial law and failed to do so. And there was not a single peep from the American administration on the matter.
Some of the mutually satisfactory agreements can be made. I think U.S. can adjust.
Yeah, if it was happening in North Korea, it'd be on 24/7, 365 television all day, all the time. They'd have it on Nickelodeon and Sprout for Babies. They'd have it on Poob. It would be on billboards. They'd have it on Quibi. Okay, they'd have it on Apple Plus. They'd have it on Tenga. You would see it. There would never be a moment where you don't see the people's discontent with the Kim dynasty. Finally, yeah, it'd be on Schleeb. It'd be on Poob. It'd be on Quibi. It'd be on Tubi.
They already imposed the tariff, depending on the negotiations between the two countries. Then clearly the final outcome, I think, would be much better than one side impose something and the other side is actually retaliates and things like that. So we will take a very cooperative position on this, and we will promote the dialogue. And we have a lot of experience with that kind of, finding out the mutual benefit between the two countries.
If I may, to be clear, you do anticipate that this 25% tariff level will not stay. That's your anticipation.
Depending on the negotiations.
That's certainly your hope.
Yes.
Are you optimistic? How do you feel on a gut level these negotiations are going to go?
Well, now about 57.
I could be mega dumb, but what are you implying that the reason is that they aren't covering it? Because America doesn't give a f if South Korea is a military dictatorship or a right-wing authoritarian dictatorship that implemented martial law. They care about South Korea being an American military base and a bulwark against socialism in the region. That's the only thing they care about. I'm saying that America's values of uplifting democracy around the world is bullshit. It's never been the case in South Korea to begin with. And it certainly this is certainly another instance where certainly another instance where like the American government was more invested in maintaining its allegiance with whoever or whatever controls South Korea than to actually bring up some semblance of like liberal democracy there.
Different countries are actually subject to that kind of tariff. So
25% though, that's pretty steep for friends for generations.
Well, it's a pity because we are evaluated in that way.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of different assessment can always happen in this kind of situations.
You think it can always happen even though South Korea and the United States have been friends for generations? I guess my point is, should friends really be treating friends like this?
Well,
CNN is trying to get the South Korean acting president to say something mean about Donald Trump, but every Asian leader knows not to do that. Okay? And especially South Korean leadership. Are you kidding me? He is literally basically shoehorning the statement. He's like, come on, dude, give me something that's actionable. Give me something newsworthy. Fucking air his ass out. And he's going to be like, no, of course not. Our relationship is steadfast.
Friendship should be compensated by sometimes the mutual economic, financial, and other dimensional aspects. You can never say...
He's like, yeah, we've really been f***ing over the American working class. Yeah. Yeah. Trump is right. We have, as a matter of fact, destroyed the American manufacturing personally. I loved doing it, and he's right. I need to be punished. I've been a bad boy.
That relations between the United States and Korea, because we are friends, so everything should be condoned, and we don't care what happens to that.
I understand that.
That kind of situations cannot sustainable.
Right. I understand that, friends can't be happy with each other all the time. But I guess, Acting President Han, when you have President Trump calling out South Korea about a month ago at the joint session to Congress, making space in the joint session to call out South Korea, and then slapping a 25% tariff.
Dude, he's really daggering him. He's like, come on, bro. Come on, say something. He literally said, you ain't shit. He said, galbijim ain't that good. He said, what's up with Korean food? Why does it have cheese on it? Why does this Asian food have cheese on it? He said, K-pop ain't even nothing, as a matter of fact. He went in front of Congress and said, he done with K-pop. Say something. Anything. Hate on the...
What was your reaction to that?
Well, for the tough negotiator.
He said, yeah, journalist says, you going to take that, bro? Listen, see, it'd be different if he was saying that about me. You know what I'm saying? But he's talking big shit, dude. Come on.
You don't have to have some kind of a permanent and prior perception on what the other party is doing. I think we should,
Oh my God, I just remember, you're right. Trump did criticize Parasite's Best Picture win. He did. He literally did. I would expect Trump to talk shit about BTS or something. Like, I could see that. That's not that far-fetched.
In a very cool way, assess what this kind of 25% means for us. And we should, in a very cool way, should negotiate with them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Greer, thanks for being here, and I enjoyed our conversation in the office last month.
You better keep New Jeans out of his damn mouth. I agree.
Let me begin by saying, as I suspect you know, that I am not a great fan of unfettered free trade. I helped lead the effort when I was in the House against NAFTA and against permanent normal trade relations with China. I will never forget a visit that I made to the Macadillo area in Mexico, where I saw brand new factories and literally Mexican workers living in cardboard boxes. And the result, of course, was the loss of hundreds of thousands of jobs, good-paying jobs in this country, transferring them to Mexico, where people work for horrendous wages. That is the type of trade policy which I detest. But I want to move to an area to talk about the legal basis of what President Trump has done. President Trump said, Mr. Greer, that he had no choice in terms of Canada, and I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. He had no choice but to bypass Congress and to impose an emergency 25% tariff on Canada to stop, quote, the massive, end quote, amount of fentanyl and, quote, the millions and millions of undocumented immigrants coming from the northern border. Unfortunately, that's a lie. The truth is that the U.S. Customs and Border Protection reported just 43 pounds of fentanyl was seized at the Canadian border last year, representing just 2.
Damn, Bernie's in the pocket of Big Fen. He said, unfortunately, that's a lie. He's like, I wish they was sending in that good fentanyl, but they're not.
0.2% of the total amount of fentanyl is too much. But if 0.2% constitutes an emergency, my guess is illegal drugs are coming in from every country in the world. And that gives the President of the United States incredible power to determine tariffs. Further, he said he talked about millions and millions of undocumented immigrants coming from Canada. In fact, last year there were 24,000 people, not millions and millions. First question, really, we can argue about tariffs, but why does the president have to lie all of the time in order to make his point?
So, Senator, I would just refute that when the president is talking about the nature of the emergency we have. I mean,
could you talk a little bit closer into the mic, please?
Certainly. Senator, I would just say, I think you need to look at what the president issued in terms of the order for the legal basis for what we're doing, right? I mean, the president very rightly hit on this issue of fentanyl migration coming from northern southern borders, and it's a real emergency.
Drugs are a real emergency. 0.2%. You can then argue illegal drugs come from every country in the world. If you declare that as an emergency, you're giving the President of the United States unbelievable power. Let me go on that point. Let me mention to you what you probably know. 7 Republicans have joined a number of Democrats on legislation reasserting Congress's ability to play an active role in trade and tariffs. That, on the Republican side, was led by Senator Grassley. And he said, and I quote, "For too long, Congress has delegated its clear authority to regulate interstate and foreign commerce to the executive branch, et cetera, et cetera." He wants to reassert Congress's constitutional role and ensure Congress has a voice in trade policy, end of quote. In the last 2 weeks, all we have seen is reports in the newspaper. Congress has not had 1 ounce of authority in determining tariff policy. Do you think Congress should be completely left out of the process? Or does the president have emergency power to do anything he wants with regard to tariffs?
Senator, my staff has had over 200 meetings with congressional offices in the past 2 months to consult. The president's been very transparent about what he wants to do on tariffs. Congress delegated a law to him to take this action.
Mr. Greer, you can have all the meetings you want. You and I had a nice meeting. But at the end of the day, the president did exactly what he wanted to do without any discussion, formal discussion with members of Congress. He could make recommendations to Congress, that's for sure. Do you really think that he has the power under an emergency degree to reorder the trade world, global trade policy, without any input from the United States Congress?
Sir, Congress gave him this law where if he determines a national emergency, he can take appropriate action to regulate imports. That's what he's done.
Do you think it's a national emergency that 0.2% of fentanyl coming from Canada constitutes a national emergency?
Sir,
do you?
The president has determined that Canada...
I'm asking you.
You're asking me about drug policy. So I agree with the president. If you have China and Canada and Mexico putting drugs into this country at different levels, then that's an emergency. We have to deal with it.
Look, we're not going to argue about the danger of drugs. 43 pounds of fentanyl. On that basis, the president can declare an emergency with any country on earth and take unlimited.
Well, good thing he did already, you know. He kind of did do that.
Power. That's called authoritarianism. Okay? That's not.
It looks like we've got a novel approach here in terms of an alla prima approach. I'm not a trade expert, and I'm not going to question it at this point. I do have a question about...
Tom was like, I'm getting too many death threats before the tariffs came down. And now they're knocking on my door. Now they're knocking on my door. They got chainsaws outside my house. We need to fix this problem before they rise up and kill me and my family in the violent ways in which they have detailed in my voicemails.
At the end of the day, the other thing in management consulting we like to focus on is this concept of one throat to choke. In other words, when you're finally taking a look at a strategy, someone has to own it. And you can't say that it's the president or the vice president. So my first question to you, in this scenario, the decision maker who decided the alla prima approach, who has obviously had to have spent time anticipating what we saw in the markets and some of the pushback, I'm assuming this all got gamed out because it's a novel approach, it needed to be thought out. Whose throat do I get to choke if this proves to be wrong?
Well, Senator, you can certainly always talk to me, but
are you at the tip of the spear?
Well, I'm at the tip of the spear for
alla prima approach.
So, first of all, I would push back, Senator, just a little bit on this. For now, we've excluded pharmaceuticals and semiconductors to take a different kind of approach.
So let me get
and
to
we've excluded
question.
USMCA
Section 232 and 301, we know particularly Section 232 is steel and aluminum. Section 301 is Chinese imports, where there's no other provider. I overheard you say that maybe, or I thought I heard you say in response to another question, that for the near term there won't be any exclusions. Is that true of China, where they have said the U.S. is unilaterally bullying and completely groundless and they're going to fight to the end? Are the 232 and 301 tariffs exclusions on the shelves until we get to a reasonable agreement with China? I'm just trying to answer a question that I have several people in North Carolina asking.
So the president, again, is the final decision maker on all of these things, and he has directed that there not be exclusions or exemptions.
There will not be any exclusions on steel, aluminum, or any products that are only manufactured in China for the foreseeable future until China determines what the end is, because they said they're going to fight to the end. Again, I'm just trying to communicate questions that I've asked, so there will be no exclusions. Yes. I won't waste your time asking for them. That's the main reason I wanted to ask the question. So again, I'm just trying to get my head around the logic of an alla prima approach, and I'm waiting to be, I'm waiting to see it be successful. But it just seems like we've decided to begin a trade war on all fronts, and that's okay if the person who thought this through has an answer for why you go after partners that we have a very long story.
Steve E. the Scott, thank you for the 25. Get the subs.
Relationship with. Maybe we give some developing countries a break because we're trying to actually get their economies functioning, make them look to the West versus to Chinese investment. So it just seems like I'm getting my head around the alla prima approach. I'm not condemning it because I'm not a trade expert, but I still, at some point, and I understand that you are the trade rep. So if you own this decision, then I'll look to you to figure out if we're going to be successful. If you don't own the decision, I'm just trying to figure out whose throat I get to choke if it's wrong, and who I put up on a platform and thank them for the novel approach that was successful if they're right.
Good evening and welcome. The trade war.
He learned from the death threats. Now he's the one dishing them out.
Escalating to new heights tonight as President Trump's latest round of tariff threats are hours away from becoming reality, including the latest tit-for-tat levies on Chinese goods, which at midnight will bring tariffs on Chinese products entering the U.S. to a cumulative 104%. And with the clock also ticking down on President Trump's across-the-board tariff against dozens of other countries, the White House is signaling there are potential deals to be made, saying many of those countries are already reaching out. A wave of optimism sent markets soaring at the open before a days-long sell-off resumed. The Dow losing 320 points, NASDAQ, and the S&P 500, which closed below 5,000 for the first time in nearly a year. Once again, Christine Roman starts us off.
By the way, this is how I know the CIA ain't got no motion, okay? Because I feel like in its heyday, if a president did something that is like half as impactful on the global market, let alone American enterprise, the CIA would have, one, assassinated them before nighttime, and two, would have revealed like the most damaging blackmail on anyone that tried to do this or even entertained the notion of doing such a thing.
Tonight, more whiplash on Wall Street. The Dow up nearly 1,500 points before closing down 320, and the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq down too. All as we're hours away from a new round of President Trump's tariffs on imported goods.
We've been ripped off and abused by countries for many years with the tariff situation. They've used tariffs.
Wait. Amendment to reciprocal tariffs and updated duties is applied to low-value imports from People's Republic of China. Executive order regulating imports, On April 4th, the State Council Tariff Commission of the PRC announced it in response. Tariff increase. Wait, no, this is just the de minimis tariff increase. Yeah, no, this is just like the implementation. There isn't anything new in here. No, this is the low-value goods also being tariffed. This is just it. This is just reiterating that. CIA in its heyday was destabilizing foreign countries and assassinating presidents. What the fuck do they do now? I mean, that's what I'm saying. They don't got nothing. They got no motion. They got no motion, dude. The CIA wasn't worried, apparently. Stock market nosedive doesn't scare the CIA. What they know that we don't. He's betting big on America, yet even the stock market plunging. The joke's on us. Publicly, Burns fulfilled one of the responsibilities of top intelligence official. Scaremonger about a fragile America besieged by unseen forces from terrorism to TikTok. But in private, he's bullish on America. His investments show this. Armed, one presumes, with the best information and insight on the state of the world. And Burns knows Trump, his plans on Ukraine and the Middle East. Fear, it seems, is for the little people who must assent to forever swelling national security budgets, always to stave off the latest supported crisis. We've obtained a copy of Burns' financial disclosure, which he was required to file in January upon leaving his job. He's firmly invested in America, the disclosure reveals, with only scant investments, proportionally speaking, in foreign markets. Burns is pot committed to the United States and his continued vitality. These are his largest mutual fund holdings, each with more than $250,000 invested. Yeah, okay, that's just mutual fund holdings, though. Wait, what? I don't think that means anything. Yeah, I think that's not. I thought there was something else going on there. Like, that's
against
normal.
us.
Yeah, he's a cautious. That just simply means he's a cautious investor. Am I wrong? Like, isn't that what that means? That he's like investing into relative stable funds. He's not like he's not making risky trades with potentially big benefits or major consequences.
We didn't use tariffs against them or in any way. I mean, we just didn't use them.
Though the White House says it's open to negotiation for countries looking to lower new U.S. tariffs for their products, saying 70 countries have reached out so far.
Bring us your best offers, and he will listen. Deals will only be made if they benefit American workers and address our nation's crippling trade deficits.
Now it's a global scramble to stop potentially disruptive border taxes.
We're doing very well in making, I call them tailored deals, not off the rack. These are tailored, highly tailored deals. Right now, Japan is flying here to make a deal. South Korea is flying here to make a deal, and others are flying here.
But tonight, that trade war with China still flaring, following tariff.
Isn't Trump live right now? I saw a clip on the timeline of him wearing a bow tie. He's live somewhere. He's live and alive. Let me see if I can find it. Entire countries are flying in. They're flying in.
One of our trading partners running
4% is going to work. I genuinely don't know.
And retaliation on both sides. After midnight, China will face a 104% border fee on its goods to the U.S. China's foreign ministry calling it bullying and blackmail.
I think it was a big mistake, this Chinese escalation.
The Treasury Secretary urged countries not to retaliate if they want a deal.
Don't escalate, and then we will see where President Trump is after a period of days or weeks.
Tonight, the president's efforts to bring back American jobs.
This has been a tilted playing field for a long time. The president's trying to even it out, and I think he's doing the right thing.
But Democrats warning the president's action could trigger a...
Dude, I'm closing my eyes and imagining the reverse situation where it's like socialist leadership has overtaken the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party is now the Democratic People's Labor Party. Okay, the Democratic People's Labor Party. We have workers' councils. The party is demonstrating utmost loyalty to the leader because they recognize his revolutionary vision. The leader says, listen, the economy is going to have a brief moment, a brief period of instability, but ultimately we will decouple America from the treacherous grips of capital piece by piece. We will rebuild this country in the vision of revolutionary figures that came before us. We are going to no longer have a dictatorship of the few, the dictatorship of capital and capital owners, but instead a dictatorship of the American population. And all of the party leadership is in unison saying this. Okay, they're like, no, you must trust the vision. You must trust the process. We are rebuilding the American infrastructure after far too many years of instability, far too many years of being servile to the parasitic nature of the capital class. We are going to do it. I'm just closing my eyes and imagining like it's not Trump doing this, but it's actually a socialist vision. It feels good.
Recession.
Donald Trump should immediately reverse his...
It's funny to think... Oh, God, here it is. Here's Chuck Schumer right after I said that. It's funny to think that, like, any kind of anti-capitalist initiative, any kind of socialization would unironically lead to market instability, okay, in the short term, because the system relies on profits being maximized every quarter. So even if they weren't doing a full-blown socialist revolution or something, even if it was like a Bernie-style social democrat, even if they're socialists, but they're a democratic socialist, so they're presenting themselves as a social democrat in the interim. And one of the many things that Bernie Sanders would do is, like, I don't know, socialize the healthcare system, right? Implement Medicare for all. There would be a lot of market instability. People would be screaming bloody murder on television day in, day out. But this kind of defense of the leadership would be an absolute necessity at that time. But that would never happen.
Reckless trade war.
And tonight, new signs of division in the administration after these comments from top trade advisor Peter Navarro about Elon Musk.
Elon's a car manufacturer, but he's not a car manufacturer. He's a car assembler. He wants the cheap foreign parts, and we understand that. But we want him home.
Musk, who has voiced skepticism about tariffs, fired.
I feel like everything that's happening is something you agree with, but because it's Trump, you don't like it. Are you fucking stupid? Wait, what? Socialism is a joke. It's not real. That's literally what's happening. I'm confused. Who wouldn't want this? I feel like everything that's happening is something you agree with, but because it's Trump, you don't like it. Yeah, dude. I don't actually want socialism. I just want rich people's stock portfolio to dip a little bit in the short term as they fucking recover and consolidate wealth further as the working poor get shafted. Who needs socialism? My anger and resentment was directly towards rich people like fucking Barstool's very own Dave Porkboy losing $10 million of value for the first week and then recovering in spectacular fashion. That's what I wanted. Yeah, my eyes are not on the prize of uplifting all working class individuals around the world and certainly in the United States of America. It's not about that at all. It's just like fucking over the rich for a brief period of instability as the working class loses their fucking jobs in a period of stagnation, in a period of mass layoffs and an affordability crisis like nothing you've ever seen before. What do you mean? The reason why I don't like the things that are happening right now is because they're stupid. There's no better way to describe it than that word. I know it sounds reductive, but the reality is that's how Trump moves. He moves stupid like. He moves in a stupid fashion. You can't do trade protectionism if there's no trade to protect at the domestic front. You can't break something before building the underlying basis for why you are breaking the... It's idiotic. That's why even people like Bernie Sanders, who were opponents of NAFTA and were long-standing defenders of American manufacturing and stood proudly against free trade, are literally also saying the same thing, where they're like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? This is so dumb. The strats are about shafting those profiting from The strats are about shafting those profiting from taking advantage of consumers who are the workers to begin with. What are you saying, dude? You're so fucking stupid. Every goddamn MAGA supporter is just too dumb to have a conversation with. Yeah, dude. You know who was shafting the American working class? Not the capital owners, but fucking third world slaves, dude. The Indonesian cotton mill worker was the one who was fucking you over. You absolute moron. You fucking baboon. How can I have a normal conversation with you when you go, you know who's really fucking the American working class? Not the American capital owners that willingly, voluntarily, and excitedly moved manufacturing overseas so that we could fucking literally use and abuse the third world, the global south. But it's actually the fucking Bangladeshi worker himself. That's who fucked me over. You are the biggest delusional moron of all time. Holy fuck. I can't have a normal conversation with you because you're too stupid to have a conversation with. What am I supposed to say to this? Oh my God. Jesus Christ, dude. Your disgusting, fat, Ameripig ass was able to get affordable treats in perpetuity at the backs of slave labor. That's what we did. That's the global marketplace. That's quite literally what happened in perpetuity. And now Trump's like, actually, that's not good. We have to enslave our own domestic labor force, I guess, or whatever the fuck they're planning to do, because no one knows what they're planning to do, because what these decisions they're making are so stupid because there's no underlying manufacturing base to actually improve, to actually do any sort of output that will be competitive with the global trade scheme that we have designed that once again has enslaved the global south so that you can eat a $5 jalapeno popper, you fat fuck. Correct. It's the decision makers. Fuck the corporate decision makers and capital class, like you said. That's not. Trump is a fucking real estate billionaire. His entire administration is filled to the brim with parasitic monsters. Are you fucking that stupid that you think he's not working at the behest of capitalists? Are you fucking dumb? The idea is to make it competitive. How? Do you have a factory that I was oblivious to? Is there a factory in your backyard? Have you already hired and trained tens of thousands of fucking workers? Is that what's going to happen? Are you going to ensure that they have their collective bargaining rights? Because Donald Trump just undermined the collective bargaining rights of 1.5 million federal workers just last week. It is not the fucking manufacturing jobs that people desire. It's well-paid jobs that people desire. It's benefits that people desire. They don't give a fuck if you're working in a factory or a goddamn Starbucks barista. It's about how much money you make in the process. It's about being able to own a home. It's about being able to have upward social mobility for your fucking children. It's about an upward trajectory for the American working class. It's about being able to go to college for free. It's about being able to have healthcare for free. These are the things that people desire, not some fucking fantasy about sewing socks in a goddamn moldy ass fucking factory for 35 cents. That's not the dream. It doesn't matter what the manufacturing or the services that you offer are. That does not matter. That is completely irrelevant to this conversation. People are not like, oh, there's a lot of honesty and a lot of work in getting black lung at the fucking coal mine. No, it's because those are supposed to be the good paying jobs. The fantasy of going back to the 1965 standard of being able to have a single fucking, a family with two parents, okay, a two-parent household where only one parent works, and that's enough to get by. That's enough for you to get a house. That's enough for you to get a car. That's enough for you to have 2, 3 children. Okay, that's enough for you to take some time off work, go fucking travel elsewhere. I don't know, go to Galveston, Texas, or where the fuck you're gonna go to meet your inbred cousins. Okay, that's the dream. The dream isn't to just simply work in a factory and then things will fucking fix themselves. That's not how it goes. You're not gonna work in a factory, you lazy piece of shit. Shut the fuck up. There are empty factories everywhere and people want to work. Remember how base Detroit used to be? Oh my God. Oh my God. There are empty factories everywhere. I didn't realize that you could just restart manufacturing in a fucking factory that has been accruing dust for. I didn't realize. How did I not think of that? There are so many empty factories because it's that simple. You just go back to the empty factory and you're like, okay, empty factory, no more. What are you saying? These are dilapidated buildings. These are dilapidated buildings collecting dust. You can't just restart industry like that. Oh my God. Thank you for saying I'm hot. But it makes me so mad when people make these stupid ass decisions, these stupid ass statements. You can't just, you think I haven't factored these things into my argument, by the way? This is what I've been talking about for the past year at this point, since Donald Trump started talking about these tariff initiatives. Industry is being industrious, you know? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. These people unironically think they could just like manifest like The Secret, a robust manufacturing hub here in the United States of America after literal multiple decades. This is before we even factor in automation and what that has done to global manufacturing in general, in terms of the labor force and the labor participation in manufacturing across the board. You don't know anything. How am I supposed to have a conversation with you? The worst part about it is the closest that we've ever arrived at like rebuilding American manufacturing is unironically still stunted because it's stunted by the lack of vision inside of the neat little confines of neoliberalism. The closest we arrived at rebuilding manufacturing in this country was not Donald Trump's tariffs initiative. It was actually Joe Biden with his fucking CHIPS Act. And the irony there is it's once again another fucking failure because it does not meet the necessity of the time to actually rebuild a robust infrastructure to make America a manufacturing hub of the fucking planet, because it's still stunted by the private-public partnership that the government holds on to because they're fucking capitalist morons. Oh my God. I've said this already. Even if the United States of America actually was serious and all of a sudden got hit with the fucking Marxist-Leninist beam, okay? And every single one of our leaders was like, we need to do central planning, Chinese style, okay? It would still take at least a fucking decade to build this robust hub of industry. You can't just like close your eyes and wish that there's a factory that you can use. That's not how this works. It takes years and years to build. It takes years and years of training too. That is also before we factor in the obvious issues. The obvious issues that is there are already a fuck ton of jobs, and jobs are fake to begin with. Just make fake jobs. Who gives a fuck? Okay. But there's already existing jobs. The problem is not that Americans don't have jobs. 23% underemployment in this country is fucking criminal. It's that all the jobs that are available are fucking shit. They're gig economy jobs. They don't offer you steady pay. It's unsustainable. The issue is wealth disparity. The issue is that the existing jobs that we have do not allow us to be able to pay for rent, do not allow us to overcome the fear that if you lose said job, you are not going to be able to pay for your health care. God forbid something horrible happens. These are the real issues. It's not about some fucking fantasy about being able to rebuild factories, because what good would that do if there is no labor power and participation in this process? So the jobs that are readily available are still offering you fucking $7 an hour to go sew socks at a goddamn factory. You're fucked. You're fucked in that process. The problem still persists. You still can't pay your fucking landlord. You still can't pay for health care. Everything is so goddamn expensive now because it's being made in the United States of America. It sucks. Neoliberalism sucks, but we're talking about global markets and the mechanics they go off of. You're not wrong about the challenges. No, of course I'm not wrong about the challenges. You're just responding to the stock market, responding to the instability and going, but that's a good thing because rich people get fucked over in the short term. But they don't. They don't get fucked over. Wealth is relative, okay? They get fucked over and they lose a big chunk of their wealth, but you losing $10,000 is infinitely more consequential than Aiden Ross losing $10 million. Do you understand? You losing $10,000 to $35,000 from your 401k is infinitely more consequential to your life because it adds additional years to your fucking retirement plan where you won't be able to retire at 65, 66, let alone 68. Whereas Aiden Ross can retire tomorrow. It doesn't matter if he fucking loses $10 million or not today. He's going to make that up tomorrow. It doesn't matter. Breaking. Oil prices fall below 57 for the first time since February 2021 as markets pricing a global recession. Great. Now oil prices are going down at least, so that's good. Yeah, why is it going down? Because they know demand is going to go down. That's the reason. Hasan, I need this clip because as a labor organizer, you'd be shocked at how many rank and file dipshits actually believe what this guy is saying word for word. I mean, look. Things are so dire that I understand why a shakeup. That's the reason why they voted for Trump. Okay, that's the reason why so many rank and file labor union members voted for Donald Trump, because they're like, this system that has been designed has fucked me over in perpetuity. So let's break it. After all, if we break it, the alternative can't be as bad as what I've experienced thus far. The irony, of course, is that Trump is not breaking it and then rebuilding it so that it's a little bit better for you. Trump is just simply breaking it and making it worse for you overall. That's the sad state of affairs. And I think because there is no counterbalance, because there's no rudder, there is no moral compass, there is no guidance from any sort of like alternative vision of how to rebuild society, because the alternative vision is, like I said, neoliberalism from the Democratic Party, who also want to unleash the markets, the freer the markets, the freer the people. Because of that, people are just going to be even more resentful, even more volatile. And the things that they will grab onto is even more reactionary sentiment. Perhaps we haven't killed enough trans people or Guatemalan people that it still feels like shit sucks. That's what's going to happen. This is why not having an effective counterbalance is incredibly fucking dangerous. Not having effective counter messaging is incredibly fucking dangerous in an unstable, treat-the-right society like the United States of America, where everybody's got fucking guns. And the moment that you take their burgers away, they will use those guns. Yeah, don't worry. The price of oil barrels will go back up. Trust me. When Donald Trump tries to fucking, I don't know, do a land invasion in Yemen, and then Iran and Yemen retaliate by lighting oil refineries in Saudi Arabia on fire, all of a sudden the supply of oil will go down, and yet demand will stay stable, and boom, prices skyrocket for oil again. Okay, just wait. We're literally not even, we're in the beginning, baby steps of the Trump shakeup, the liberation. And then meanwhile, roads in many countries aren't wide enough for Ford F-150s. Non-trade tariff barrier right there. I've been saying this. I've been saying this for so long. I've been saying it nonstop. 60% now disapprove of his handling of the economy. Huge drop since his inauguration. And 55% of independents have an unfavorable view of the tariff. Yeah, Trump's honeymoon harakiri. He fucking Sudoku'd. I'll say this once again. Imagine how cool it'd be if you said, after each sentence, like the one guy you showed us, and said you wanted to start doing. Would have made the rant so much cooler. Yeah, I agree. I disagree with you because I'm wrong. Nice. Lamau, it's seppuku. You think I don't know? No, it's Sudoku. I always, whenever I visit Europe, you know what I think to myself? Oh, thousands of years of architecture and city planning that was designed for walkability in mind at the time because they simply did not have cars. We should fucking pave it and turn it into a massive highway. That's what we should do. That's what I think. I always think, Europe is fine, but you know what would make it better? If it was just one big fucking parking lot. We should turn Europe into Dallas, okay? We should turn every major European city into Dallas. We will not stop until every major European city is fucking Dallas. Hell yeah, baby. Yeah, Dallas, Fort Worthify Europe. First Galveston, now Dallas. Bro, do you hate Texas? What the fuck? Do you like fucking Galveston? Do you think it's a hot spot to go visit? Oh, I can't wait to fucking shower myself in the grayest water you've ever seen in Galveston. That's what I think of all the time. I'm like, oh, where should I go? The River Thames of America, okay? Same fucking color and consistency.
Back here inside Studio J, Ernie Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, Chuckster, Vince Carter here for Kenny the Jet Smith. What?
Disappointed in New Orleans. Where they going, Chuck? Galveston. That dirty ass water. We're not even gonna send them to Cancun. We're gonna send them to Galveston where that dirty ass water be washed up on the shore. You people think they're in the beach. Y'all okay? Y'all gonna send y'all to Cancun. Y'all drive y'all quit. Drive your ass down to Galveston. Come on, man.
So they're not taking a little.
Come on, they didn't even try, man. No, we're not getting them no plane ticket to the beach. We send their ass to Galveston, Texas, right where that dirty water washed up on the beach. They can't even get in the water.
And they have a fucking measles outbreak. That's right. They also recently had a fucking measles outbreak. Can't wait to go there.
Water. Oh, man.
Oklahoma City.
I fucking hate you. Enjoy your wildfires, bitch. Galveston, all we have. You're an asshole. Crazy. It's crazy to me. What the hell is going on? Anyway, herd immunity, liberal. Yeah, exactly. The kids are doing great out here.
Fired back, calling Navarro a moron, postably false. Tesla has the most American-made cars. Navarro is dumber than a sack of bricks. The White House on the feud today.
Look, these are obviously two individuals who have very different views on trade and on tariffs. Boys will be boys, and
holding out hope for a deal soon.
Absolutely. Investors are desperate for this turmoil over tariffs to be resolved, and they will likely latch on to any kind of a sign, which is why sometimes they magnify even the smallest signals from this administration, Lester.
Christine Romans, thanks. And for more on the impact of the tariffs, I'm joined by Tom Yamas. And Tom, experts say the prices on everything from cars to toys could go up.
That's right, Lester. If tariff fees are fully pushed on consumers, the price tag for, say, sneakers made in Vietnam could jump 40%. An iPhone could spike $350. So tonight, we thought we'd take a closer look at a single product, Nintendo's hugely anticipated Switch 2 console, set for release June 5th. Nintendo has already sold 150 million Switches. The new version would be the first major gaming release since the tariff announcement. Pre-orders were supposed to start tomorrow, but instead the company hit the pause button. They've decided to assess the potential impact.
They got to figure out what they're going to get charged. Do they charge 50% more? Do they charge double? Do they even ship them?
The current price for the new Nintendo Switch, $449. Ironically, to keep prices down, Nintendo had moved some of its Switch 2 production to Vietnam because of earlier tariffs on China. But Vietnam is now facing its own 46% tariff.
How much of this is made in the U.S.? None of it.
None of it. The reality is, for these tariffs, it is a gut punch for every electronic. Nintendo being the first case because they're early in terms of the Switch. This is basically an economic Armageddon coming to tech.
Ives says moving production to the U.S. isn't a realistic option.
How much would it cost them to start manufacturing Switches here in the U.S.?
Tens of billions of dollars.
Billions? That's because of a supply chain that's been built over decades.
It would take 4 to 5 years to even build and get done a factory here in the U.S. And the reality is the assembly, the supply chain's in Asia. If you just build a factory here in the U.S., where are you getting all the parts from? Still in Asia.
Nintendo says it remains on track for a June 5th release.
In your estimation, how much of what we buy is going to go up?
90% of what we buy as consumers living in the United States is going to go up. And I think the U.S. consumer doesn't realize the storm that's coming, but they'll be seeing it over the coming weeks and months in those prices.
Tom, this is fascinating, but there's a big caveat here.
Yeah, Lester, there is a big caveat, and that's that the president has the power to exempt companies. It happened in the first Trump term. It's unclear if it'll happen in this term. It hasn't happened yet, but he does have the power to impose tariffs, but also to exempt some companies.
All right, Tom Yamas, thanks. Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.
Welcome to the Daily Show. My name is John.
I don't care about this.